All right, fam, buckle up because this one is both hilarious and heart-opening. In today's episode, I'm joined by my brother Sean Graves, who I originally met through our mutual friend Christopher August, you guys also know. After linking up at High Vibe Festival this past June, we had one of those, wait, you're from there too? Moments, and realized we actually grew up just 2 towns apart, total South Shore guys through and through. Since connecting, I've been beyond grateful to have Sean in my life, not just because he's a comedic genius who gets me laughing harder than almost anyone I know, but because of the depth he brings into one of the most needed spaces on the planet right now, which is men's work. Sean has spent years honing his craft, guiding men to rediscover their strength, vulnerability, and purpose. And alongside Chris, he's been co-hosting epic men's retreats all around the world, helping them remember what true brotherhood actually feels like. This conversation is equal parts laughter, depth, and truth bombs. So grab your coffee, your joint, or whatever helps you drop in, and enjoy this beautiful exchange with the one and only Sean Graves. Sean Graves, my fellow fucking South Shore homie, dude. How are you, bro?
What's up, man? It's how cool is it to be doing a podcast like this when we're on such a similar path, and we both were born in the same area, which is a place that almost nobody would know about, and here we are. It's freaking cool.
You know what's even funnier, bro, is that out of all places, you know, you were born in Whitman, right? Born in Whitman?
I was born in Boston, but I grew up in Hanson.
Gotcha. And so it's funny because, you know, Whitman Hanson, for anyone who's not from the South Shore, pretty much everyone listening except Sean and I, you wouldn't know this, but they kind of like tie the schools together, I think, right? Like Whitman Hanson is a term. Yeah. And I remember, dude, like, you know, my parents owned a company in East Bridgewater, which is like right on the Whitman line. And my cousin Dan was had grown up in Whitman. So I knew a lot about it. But I remember being like 18 and I had met this girl off Vampire Freaks named Kelsey. and this is actually a diabolical story, dude. I've never told this before, but I met this girl on Vampire Freaks, dude.
What is that?
All right, I was going to say, for any of you youngsters out there, which I know you're not young, but for any of you youngsters, you'd be like, what the fuck is that too? MySpace, but make it goth. That's pretty much what it was, dude. It was like MySpace for goth people, like industrial goth. And, you know, kind of like back in the day, you know, goth was very different than it was now. It was a definite subculture, and all those kind of genres that now someone might be like, I'm this or I'm that, like they're all subcultures of goth. Back then, it was just goth. It was like trip pants, crazy hair, you know, that kind of shit. So anyway, I found her on there. She was wearing a Slayer shirt, bleach blonde hair. I was like, let's go. And so I ended up picking her up at her parents' house. I thought it was weird too, because she told me to pick her up down the street. Little did I know, I come to find out that her parents were very upset with her. She had been going on, making some interesting life decisions before she met me, just put it that way. And so I ended up bringing her to this party that my buddy James is hosting. And I remember we go there and we have a great time. Her parents are calling the whole time. And like, it was so funny because, you know, like first dates, you know, like you don't want to like, you know, you're trying to like keep it calm, keep it chill. And so like, I can hear, like she picks up the phone, like, hello. And her dad's like, get the fuck up. What? She's like, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay. And like, he's just freaking out on the other end. And so during this party, there was this kid who kept going around being like, whoa, Whitman. And I just remember always remembering that, dude. Like, it was just so funny. So when we're at High Vibe,
sounds about right.
For the first, yeah. And when I'm at High Vibe Fest with you and I meet you for the first time in the flesh, and I start finding out you're from the South Shore, and then I find out you're from Whitman, all that memory just came back to me, dude. So,
oh my God, dude. What a trip. What a small world. Like it full circle comes back to the place that you grew up in, where you think that most people aren't on that path. And then you realize like, wow, there's actually some people that are really in it. And that, like, how cool is that to have that in the area that you grew up in?
It is really cool.
You said East Bridgewater is like that. We did in high school, we had a full town like brawl against East Bridgewater. It was like a war. It was like 50 on 50 where everybody ran at each other, like some medieval type stuff. And their biggest guy, our quote unquote best guy, was a professional boxer. And he's still professional to this day. Wow. I don't know if I can use his name or not, but he his name is Mark, we'll say. Yeah. He ran up to the biggest guy on their side and knocked him out in one punch. And then their entire squad was so shook and they sprinted back the other way. And then we were all chasing him. It was like out of a West Side Story movie.
Dude, I actually have a similar story. It was actually North Weymouth used to fight South Weymouth a lot. But I
Yeah.
was always cool with like every faction of Weymouth. There's four. There's North Weymouth, where I grew up in, East Weymouth, where I kind of live now, and Weymouth Landing, kind of, and then there's South Weymouth. And so back in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, my neighbor's parent would tell me all the time, like, oh, we used to have huge brawls. But when I was growing up, there was like two groups in North Weymouth that didn't like each other. I was part of one, the other people were part of the other one, and they were older kids. And they didn't even know who I was until I inserted myself into a fight and made them hate me. Basically, what happened was there was this kid, and this is like 8 Mile days. Okay. So you can just picture how the white kids were acting. All right.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was a very confusing time for white people. So
It was.
so one kid's got a flat brim hat. They're walking on the other side of the street. They exchange looks, and now they're enemies. Okay, that's how stupid the shit would start back then. And so these other kids would always, like, basically fight unfair. They'd challenge someone to a one-on-one. This kid would show up, and then they'd all jump in the second that their team members started losing. That's how they always did it.
Yeah.
And so I was a couple of years younger, and I was like, no, they're not going to do this to my friend. Like, I know what they're going to do. And so my buddy told him, all right, let's fight at the schoolyard. And my parents' house was right behind the schoolyard. Like the fence, like we have a swampland around like our house. And we used to be in that swamp all the fucking time. I know that thing in the back of my hand. So my parents had bought me a paintball gun that year for Christmas. So I decided to hide in the woods with a scope, because
like a sniper.
I'd got an 18-inch barrel on it. There was actually a place in Abington. I forget what it was, but it was on the main. I was on.
Yeah, it was like Paintball Alley or something like that.
Yeah, Route 18. Yeah, right there. Yeah. And so we went in there. My dad customized it all for me. Had a scope and everything. And so I'm like, I'm not going to let Steve get jumped, because a lot of Steve was friends with us. We were a couple years younger. We didn't really have that many other people that like were his age. So I kind of just felt like, well, like fuck these kids, like I'm gonna equal the playing field. So I hide in the bushes. And him and this other kid, Tom, I won't say his last name, they start squaring up, and Steve starts winning, and the rest of the crew goes to jump in, and I just start unloading from the bushes. Pop, 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 pop. Dude, one of their kids that always tried to be the toughest screamed like a little girl, man, like so hard. And they all started running. They're shooting real guns. I don't know how they would have thought it was real guns. But anyway, suffice to say, after that, they were very upset. and they threatened to, kill us for years, whatever. And it kind of blew over. And then about, I don't know, I want to say a year later, there was another kid that I met, this kid named Ryan. I thought he was the coolest kid because he had a heartogram tattoo. He was like, 4 years older than us. So like, he could get tattoos and everything.
Yeah.
And great kid, cool kid, whatever. But they didn't like him either. And so same thing, challenged him to a one-on-one. We're walking down this street called C Street in Weymouth. And we're walking down, and it's kind of like a hill. And at the very bottom is this little park on the left they call the Indian Grave, because years ago, I guess, 2 Indian chiefs got decapitated there. It's pretty dark, but
wow.
So they call it the Indian Grave. Supposedly it's haunted, whatever. So we're walking down the hill, and we have it's like me, a couple other kids, this kid. We're not planning to get involved at all in this. We're just kind of like, oh, we're going to go see a fight. There's like a lot of like youngins with us. Like I'm probably like 15. There's some 13-year-olds there. And then Ryan's like 18. All right. So like, let me paint the picture. So we're walking down. He's pretty good in front of us. And we see like 50 kids run out of the woods. It's like 7 of us. And we just take off running. I'm like, there's no fucking way. And we end up hearing this kid getting stomped out a couple streets over. And it was fine. He was okay. Luckily at that age, everyone just fought with fists, and it was fine. Yeah. But yeah, crazy times, dude, thinking about that.
That was such a thing. Like jumping was such a thing. And it was almost commonplace. Like, you had to watch out for that. Like kids would come out of the woods and do that kind of thing. And it's like really in the South Shore, like a bunch of little Hicktown, Cranberry Bog white kids are doing this. Like, all right.
It's so weird too, because, I think it was like a fusion of like 8 Mile and opiates coming on the scene at like the same time, like doctor shopping, but make it Boston, Yeah. Like that's 3 energies that don't mix well. Yeah.
But it was so true. Like, you're right. That was like a vortex of all of that happening right around the same time. And it just got really, really weird because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It really was, and what an interesting time though. I mean, cell phones were out, but I was talking about this with someone the other day. I really feel like, what year were you born, Sean?
87.
Okay, 87. So 87 to like 93, I would say, right? Maybe even 91. Like I was born in 91, but somewhere in those 6 years, I think is the best time to have grown up because we got to experience what life was like before the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got the internet, it was pure fun without all the drama that we have now. And we got to experience life with no cell phone, at least for me, until I was like 12. And then when I got a cell phone, all it was good to do was just like text or call. So it wasn't enough to distract you, but now you actually knew who your friends were going to be. Yeah. So, you know, and then it wasn't until I was around 18 and graduated high school that I had my first like Android phone, you know, got words with friends and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I really feel like that time was the best. You know, it was just so awesome. You'd still have to watch the snow days at the bottom of the screen. There's so many things that I feel like kids get to miss out on these days.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people talk about how the millennial generation from like right around that time period that you're talking about is like a bridge. It's like we're kind of like the front line of dismantling this old system and the old ways of being and creating a new one, but then also like having to, you know, be an anchor point and a way shower for the younger generations who only know the technology. Their brains are in this kind of like dopamine driven sort of like underdeveloped in a sense because it's only been that. And like we're kind of this bridge that can remember the importance of that and almost have to serve as a beacon to like, hey, balance out with nature, like bring it back a little bit, find some balance here. And, you know, that's kind of like the role that we get to play.
Did you ever see a movie called Haggard?
I don't think so. No, I just remember that character from Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, Hagrid.
Hagrid. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so funny because on the episode of Mark that you guys listening all heard a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Harry Potter real quick, and we talked about, have you ever seen Dear Reader, the Harry Potter overdub of Sorcerer's Stone? Dude, they call him Hagar the Horrible, and it's so funny, bro. Look it up sometime. Like, connect with some cannabis, get your giggles on. It is so funny. But the reason I brought up Haggard, the movie, or Haggard, that's how it's pronounced, Haggard. It's a Bam Margera movie. And for people who don't realize how fucking big Bam and CKY were back in like 2003 and 4.
Oh, man.
Dude, I mean, it was like the biggest celebrity ever. And he came out with this movie, and many people don't know about it. So for any of you that go watch it, all right, I'm not responsible for what you then think of me after, but I think it's the funniest shit ever. It's so ridiculous. But when you were mentioning the whole idea of like getting back into nature, I pictured, all right, I saw this line from the movie where it's like, you ever break bottles behind Wawa, dig a hole, burn some wood? You know, it's like, you know, that's the kind of idea, right? Like when we were kids, we were going to the woods, you know, no one knew where we were. We'd light fires, we'd drink MD-40, you know, or was it MD-80? I forget what it was. I forget. It's that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And what was the other one too? E&J. God, dude, brandy. That was rough. Yeah, it's so funny, dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like that was our way of getting a rush or feeling alive, as we would do this kind of crazy shit like they would do on Jackass, and we would mimic that and like throw water balloons at police cars or eggs and you know, get chased, and that was like such a thrill, and like sneak out of your parents' house and go, you know, across town and get into some mischievous stuff, and now it's like that's almost like a beautiful thing now, because that rush has been hijacked by these like big corporations that are programming the minds of the youth to just sit on their phones and not experience life and not get to feel that aliveness that we had before, that really got in and started to like take over our brains, you know?
Dude, 100%, man. You know, it's funny. I hadn't really thought about that before. And if you couple into this, the conversation around the pandemic and what that did to kids. I mean, like, think about if you were like 12, you know, you figure it lasted about, I mean, for those of us that didn't exactly believe it, that had done enough psychedelics to see through it, you know, it didn't really last that long. But for like the collective, it was about 5 years, give or take, right? Yeah. 20 to 25, you know, and really like at least 3 years. So imagine being like 12 and then going to 15 and not really having a social life. Like that is insane. Or imagine being 13 and then not getting a social life back until you're like 18, because some kids' parents were really paranoid around this, didn't let them out. You know, like that fucked a lot of kids up, man. And, you know, again, like I'm not a kid that went through that, so I can't really speak to it. But speaking to a lot of my, friends that are parents, like they talk about how like, yeah, like a lot of my kids' friends got really messed up from that, very
Yeah.
depressed, very anxious.
Those are pivotal years.
They are. And I think it kind of prevented kids from being as wild as they almost need to be during those years. Because if you don't get it out then,
Yeah.
it just becomes something way more vicious later on in life.
Oh my God. Yeah, it does. That I think even Jung would talk about that, or some famous psychologist would say, if you don't fulfill the desires and the needs of your adolescent self in the ego of that, the need to express that, it will keep coming up until it gets the expression that it desires. And if you try to fight it or push it away or not let it happen, it just turns into a monster shadow. So that's like a very real thing.
Yeah. And you got to figure like, when you're 16, if you're a fucking goofball and you do something stupid, you're 16.
Yeah.
Your parents will forgive you, your friends will forgive you. But if you're like 35 and you do some dumb shit that you do at 16, people are like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
So it's like it's only really socially acceptable for a short amount of years to really just like, go like, I don't even know what you'd call it, cheat code mode or whatever. I don't know, but again, like there's a lot that I feel like people have missed out on. And one thing I'm curious on for you, man, is, again, because I don't know, I just thought about this and I don't know if this is a thing, but I feel like it's a thing, right? I feel like, at least for me, sometimes I've looked at people that, I emulate or look up to or that have their shit together. I think that's the foundational thing. People that have their shit together, doing important work in the world, just like yourself. And I would think like, oh, like, even though I just explained all my silly shit that I did as a 16-year-old, I would imagine like, oh, maybe this person's always been like this, right? Or whatever. But like you're showing, like these kind of things kind of form you. And so I'm curious for you, like, how does a kid that grows up in Hanson end up in Bozeman doing men's work and doing so much gangster shit, bro? Like, what is that journey like, right? We've talked about the beginning stages, right?
Yeah.
And how it seems like as a kid, you let yourself be wild, man. You let yourself have fun. And how did that translate into the later years of your life? Now that we're talking about like, hey, if you don't have that, it can get weird. What happens when you get that? How did that unfold for you?
Man, well, there's this inevitable at some point, and it's tough when it happens, but you have to pull away from a lot of the people that and a lot of the circles of friends that you were running with for a long time. And it's not of course not a malicious thing, but it's just your consciousness, like something within you. Like I used to have this echo of who am I and what is all this? Like I really want to know that. I could not turn that off. And when I started to follow that, it started to take me really far away from Boston and the place that I grew up. And I just went with it. And when I started to travel and I started to go to other states and, across the country, something innately in me was like, oh, you have to get out of the energetics of the environment that you were raised in, because even if you're super aware and you're on that path, like it's just really tough to do it in the same area. So at least for some point of time, you got to get out and go experience some different shit. And so I did that. I quit my job and sold everything and went to California when I was like 29. And that was just following my soul. And then I got there and I was all like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like, yes, I have freedom. Here I am. I'm going to crush it. Like the world's my oyster. Everything's in front of me. I had a little bit of money saved up, and bro, within like 2 months, I was homeless, living out of my car, like in shambles and just in shame of like, how did this happen? And like, I believed in myself. I believed in the universe, like that was going to have my back for doing this. But it only happened because it was an initiation. And I needed to face off with like primordial fear of being homeless and all of the shit that I wasn't able to see that was deep in the subconscious came up as part of that process. Like the deepest fears, just like in a plant medicine ceremony, like it will tend to do that because it needs to reintegrate, and you need to be able to see it for what it is. But really, like that was the catalyst that I started going to a lot of ceremonies. I started to work with plant medicines really closely and forming a relationship with them. I started going to a lot of like leadership conferences and expos. I started meeting my soul family. which to me, I was like, oh, when you're on the same frequency wave as somebody, you meet them and it's like instant connection. It's like, oh, that's a family member. Oh, it's like, we don't even need to talk that much. You just feel it, instant, congruence.
Like
and so that
healing,
totally
spontaneous healing. Yeah. Spontaneous connection.
and as people know, right, it's kind of like an obvious thing now, but when you meet your soul tribe, people on the same resonance as you, you feel a stronger connection than people that you've known for like 20 years, within an hour. So that was all going on. And then I started doing men's work, and I got so much from that. And that was kind of like the process of the death of the little boy in me, or the adolescent that was kind of running the show. And I started to get called out by all these elders, and then the medicines were like showing me things too, to pair up with that. And I just got to a place, man, with all of these things where I was like, I received so much of that from that I have to turn around and give that to other people. That's what my soul wants me to do. I don't want to go back to school and be a therapist. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to work with people. I'm going to run retreats. I'm going to create these spaces that people don't even realize are going on, and give them that same feeling that I got from them. So it was all kind of emanated from that major life decision to sell everything and, get the hell out of the area that I grew up in, that I knew myself to be in.
Yeah, dude, amazing story, man. And, it sounds very similar to mine in a lot of ways, because I do agree. Like, I still live in Boston right now, but at the end of the day, I travel, so often it makes my own head spin, but I would not be where I am today if I hadn't started going out on my own. And, I was going to festivals for years. Like, I was traveling and whatnot, but I was just meeting a bunch of wooks, and wooks are awesome. Okay. No diss. Okay. They're some of the funniest people I've ever met, but their only, kind of focus was, how do we get enough money and grilled cheeses to get to the next festival? And, I realized really early on that I'm not cut out for that life. Fortunately, I got into, I don't know, I guess you could call it raving, but I got into that way after I'd already been into health. So I was always the kid, at 22, 23 at festivals being like, here's all your supplements for your rollover, and kids are like, existing on Slim Jims and grilled cheeses. Like, what is that you have? And I'm like, this is going to be a gap to have to bridge, to
what a role you were playing.
I know, dude, so strange, bro. And so I had, I'd gotten out there and, kind of experienced what the world could be from a certain lens anyway. And then when I met Mark England, that changed everything, because Mark is very good at being like, shut the fuck up, come down here, you're going to do it. And I was like, okay. And so like, he didn't even really give me an option. He's like, hey, this is in like August of 2020. I just talked about this with him the other day, but he's like, hey, a bunch of guys that and I know from Enlifted are coming down to the lake house. I want you to come. So let me know when you're flying in. I'm not taking no for an answer. Let me know when your flight lands. And so I went down there. And then when I went down there, very similar to what you said, I met a lot of people that was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, this feels awesome. This feels like the best parties I've ever gone to, but with people that are on the level that I want to be, And so I think a core component for me anyway, and it sounds like for you too, that allowed us to get here is we always surround ourselves with people that are, at least a couple of them are a little bit above where we are, maybe a lot of it above where we are. And so there's always like a goal, and just being around them helps you alchemize to how they run their schedule, how they work, how they view, and what their perspective is on life, on business, on whatever. And so I just kept saying yes. I went down there, and then when I was down there, these guys were like, hey, we're hosting a men's retreat in Colorado in a couple of weeks. You want to come? I was like, sure. Went there. Like, I'd literally be home for like a day, repack, and then go back out. And then, I went there, and they're like, hey, we're going to Mexico for 3 weeks. You want to come do peyote? I was like, fuck yeah. This is like October 2020. Flight price is so cheap. And I'm like, yeah. And then right as when that ends, Mark's like, I'm doing another lake house. I'm like, all right. And this literally went on where like I was home for like a couple days a month just to like repack and get shit together for like 2 years. That's what I did. And I really credit that time. Like, I didn't move, but I was essentially never home. So, and that helped a lot. It helped a real lot. So.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah. Cause you got out of the morphogenetic field of of the childhood era. Because like when I went back there for the first time after being gone for a while, I saw everything so differently, and like the conversations I would have with people, I was like, oh, this is a psychedelic trip. And
Yeah.
another funny piece was after the pandemic, or actually kind of during it. Actually, yeah, it was during it. It was 2020. I went back to the South Shore because I was living at a buddy's house, and I just like got this strong calling to go back home. And people are still wearing masks, and like Whole Foods has like bodyguards that are you have to wear a mask to go in there.
So embarrassing.
But I went back to my childhood home, and I stayed in my childhood room, which after the journey I had been on for like 5-6 years, that was wild because I was literally experiencing, it was like multi-dimensional. Like I was experiencing my teenage self, my little boy self all at one time. Like I was seeing versions of myself in that room. I was seeing like similar things with my parents play out and my brother. And it was just to witness all of it. And I was 33 when I went back. So it was like this sort of like final crucifixion, so to speak, of like letting go of that old, or reconciling with all those old pieces of me that I had to be at home for them to like really come up in that way. So I could see them through new eyes again, through the eyes of like wisdom and truth and love that I was holding at that moment. So that was a big initiation, man, going back to the South Shore. I wish I had known you back then, but
dude, I know.
I had no idea anybody on that was anywhere close to me.
Well, dude, that's how I felt when I met my buddy Eddie Madden. I met him at the dispensary, and it was like the weirdest thing, like crazy synchronicity. I'll make it super short, but basically, I had been listening to a lot of Aubrey Marcus. This is probably like 2016. And he introduced this guy, Paul Chek. I'd never heard of him. I tried listening to the episode, and I literally retained none of it. It like all went over my head. They're talking about God with a capital G versus a lowercase g. I'm like, it's the same word to me. I don't really understand what this means. And so then I spent about a year and a half, like, really diving into like self-development and all this shit. And, I'm listening to every episode that Aubrey puts out. That was kind of like my nightly ritual. I was like, I don't know what I need to do, but I need to change my nighttime ritual, because for a while, growing up, my friends would just come over, we'd all smoke weed and just kind of hang out, and not really do anything. And I started to be like, no, this is not going to be how I live my life. And so all I knew how to do was like, all right, just listen to something that is relevant and useful every night. So I would go home and I would like religiously listen to Aubrey Marcus. And so one day, after about a year and a half of doing this, I'm at the dispensary and high as fuck on kratom, because that was always my stack when I was there. I would talk for 10 hours straight. So I would just take a couple grams of kratom and literally talk people's ears off. Bro.
Good for that.
That's where a lot of people started being like, you should have a podcast. And I was like, no. And, we see how that worked out. So, after about a year and a half, I get this download one day. I'm like at Ermont, the dispensary. I don't think I've ever said the name of it on here, but anyway, Ermont. And I'm like feeling so good. And I'm like, oh, I should go home and listen to that podcast I didn't get about 18 months ago. I bet I'd get it now. So I go home and I'm just about to look it up. And I'm like, well, let me see if Aubrey came up with a new episode today. Because at that point, he was dropping it like randomly. Like it wasn't like every week. It was just like, whatever. So I look it up, dropped a new episode that day with Paul Chek. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So I listened to it. I resonate with all of it this time. And I'm like, who is this guy, Paul Chek? I'm like now obsessed. And next day I'm at Ermont. And it's a Friday, and this is back when like there was only like 8 dispensaries open in the whole state. So I mean, Fridays were insane in there, like crazy. Like there'd be 700 people that would come in between 7 registers, and like I'd just be talking to all of them. So basically, there was no way for me to control. Before I dated Rachel, like I knew how to be like, oh, there's a pretty girl. Okay, let me take a little bit longer of this client, and oh, you can come over to me, right? So you kind of know how to do that when you're in retail situations. Like there might be a client who comes in who's like a dark cloud, and you're like, I do not want to get them. So anyway, I'm just like, next. And this guy shows up, and he's really smiley. And so I started asking him, we start shooting the shit about water and messages from water in the universe and all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, where'd you learn all this? He's like, oh, I just got back from this sweet ass class. You ever heard of the Chek Institute? And I was like, you mean like Paul Chek? And he's like, yeah. And that's how I met Eddie. And that was the first time, that was my first person that I had met. This is before I traveled, before I had highly optimized, but that was my first guiding light of like, that's a new type of energy for me to hang out with. And my childhood friends are fucking awesome. They're just interested in other stuff. They're not interested in this stuff. So, for him, he was building water chargers at his house. He ended up doing ice and iron. You might have heard me talk about that before. It was his monthly meetup at his house, and we'd do Tai Chi and work out and do breath work. So that was kind of like my first, air of like, whoa, this is different. And it wouldn't be for years longer that I would meet other people. And even now, I'm starting to realize like, holy shit, like I had a call with a woman the other day. Awesome person. And so I'm asking her about, where she works. And she says somewhere in Boston. She's like, blah, 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 in Boston. And I'm like, guess where I live? She's like, where? And I'm like, Boston. And she's like, no way. And it's like so cool because it happens every once in a while. I'm like, we got to stick together out here because there's not as many of us, at least out in the open. I do think there is a big spiritual community out here, but it is interesting. It's harder to find.
Still closeted a little bit. Man, some cool parallels there. So yeah, it was like right around 2014, 15, 16. I was also religiously listening to Aubrey. That was the one podcast that for me, like the way that he spoke just resonated so freaking deeply for me. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then his story of one of his first ayahuasca journeys was like, I've never resonated more deeply than anything I had heard in my life. And that's what made me go do it for the first time. And that was Blue Morpho, who Hamilton Souther wasn't at that one, but it was Don Alberto, who is a just absolute master shaman that works really closely with Hamilton. And that just like blew the lid off everything. And then Paul Chek was another guy that I listened to also all the time because I felt like he was the father figure or like grandfather figure that I always wanted. And whenever I listened to him, it was like, hey, get your shit together. Like, figure this out. And, like, no excuses. Like, get this done. But in a spiritual way too, not just like a hard ass kind of David Goggins, but like an integrated, balanced, like aligned way. And I really resonated with for all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I was laughing when you talked about that story because I remember laughing so hard. I think he was on Rogan when he was telling it. At least if you listen to the same one I did, he probably told the story.
It was on Rogan, yeah. Uh-huh.
And I remember that part where he's like, yeah, as soon as the lights go out, this lady next to me pukes on my socks. And then like, I'm trying to like peel these fucking wool socks off my feet and there's all puke from someone else on there. And then he's like, within the first hour, there's this lady that's just yelling at the top of her lungs, I can't tell if I shit my pants or I didn't shit my pants. And she's just saying it over and over and over. And he's like, what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yep.
And man, dude, I remember actually we had a trim party at my house because I was, growing back then too. And, for anyone who doesn't grow, trimming sucks. All right. It takes so fucking long. It's so tedious. And so I would always be like, all right, guys, I'll buy us some food. Like weeds all on me. Like, please come over and help me. And so we were doing a trim party and listening to that and laughing our asses off, man. And it's just crazy to think back because, between Aubrey and Paul, and obviously Rogan, but a little bit different, they really kickstarted an entire generation.
They really did.
Like they're the forefathers, and Paul is the forefather of definitely Aubrey. It's really cool hanging out with Paul because he's such a fucking unit, but he's such a normal guy.
Yeah.
Like he trained Chuck Norris, some of the best. I mean, some of the people that have been the best in their respective fields ever, Paul was like their mentor, and he's kind of the one that, if you ask an old person, Paul Chek, they're like, no, he kind of likes, being in the shadows a little bit. And, but he's seriously such a wise sage, man. He's fucking awesome. And he's so funny too, man. His podcasts don't always let his funniness come out, but he is hysterical, man. Like, when you go to workshops at his house, I always recommend anyone, like, please, like, this guy's a living legend. Please go to his house and do his workshops with him and just hang out with him. Like, talk about the coolest thing. What, $1,000 for 2 days to go hang out with Paul Chek and his whole family and see how he lives? Like, yes, I'll do that with like 15 other people. We're not talking about a 5,000 person seminar. You can hang out with them. You can talk with them. It's so cool. Have you ever gone to a workshop with Paul before?
No, man. I was going to say that sounds like an epic deal worth every penny. And yeah, it's like if you listen to someone's podcast for long enough, you get the full flavor of who they are. So I've seen his very funny sides and that kind of like that. And I also love like the bluntness of like because he would get really fired up, especially during like the pandemic stuff of like kind of like this fuck you, fuck off energy. And,
yeah.
And I was like, yes. Yeah.
I identify with that energy for sure, dude. Pirate
Uh-huh.
culture,
Yeah.
and it's just so interesting, man. It really is wild to think back on, one's journey because, as Biggie Smalls famously said, it was all a dream. Like I don't even really have the dream. I just, I just, like I'm sure you probably have the same thing. It's not like you started out leaving, Hanson being like, okay, I'm going to go do men's work. Like, I try to explain this to people. You kind of have to take a trust fall.
Yeah. There's
Like
no
I
other
don't
way.
think, yeah, like when you're just starting out and like, doing something different. And that's what I mean by starting, like doing something drastically different than you've ever done.
Yeah.
It's probably going to feel like shit. It's not going to feel comfortable. And honestly, it doesn't even really matter what you do,
Yeah.
and that's the other mind fuck I've realized is that like, all my times of going to different things, training with different people, like a lot of those things I never use in like my daily practice of coaching, whatever, but I'm so grateful for the experience because they all changed me in a certain way, or they all allowed more of the totality of me to come forth,
Yeah.
and that's really powerful.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many initiations, and then it's like you really, the compass is the thing that scares the shit out of you. Like for me, that was, leading any kind of space, like leading a retreat, like, holy shit, I'm going to do that. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to offer mushrooms to people and have a retreat centered around that with a bunch of guys or a bunch of men and women, and then like facilitate that. And I'm like, that's okay for me to do that. Like, what is all of this? And then like, what if it went wrong? Like, man, one of the first, quick story on that, like the first retreat I ever did or I ever led was, it was 3 or 4 guys that I coached in a program. And I said, hey, would you guys come to, we're going to get a cabin in Maine. I'm going to get some mushrooms. I'm going to facilitate that, but we're going to do like a whole weekend centered around, spirituality and like coming back to your soul and healing and all these different things. And they were like, fuck yeah. And so we got up there and we were having an amazing time, just like so epic in so many ways. And it was my first kind of ceremony I'd ever done with other people. And that in itself was scary to me, but I knew somewhere in there, like that I was supposed to be doing it. It wasn't like this cool thing, like, oh, I'm going to be a mushroom guy, or like, oh, I'm going to serve this medicine. Like, it's so glorious. Like, no, it's not. If you're not called to it with a very strong, like if there's not some kind of communication from the plant itself, like I would not advise to do that because there's just so many pieces that are like not great. But anyways, so I don't really know what I'm doing. So we all take them. I take the same amount. And these are like very strong penis envy mushrooms.
Oh, God,
and
dude, it's always PEs.
Totally. Every mushroom story I feel like starts with the PEs. So we take them, and within about 20 minutes, I'm on the floor. I can't even move. There's 2 of the guys are crying. One of the other guys ran upstairs to go into his room and like tried to lock himself in there. It was just a disaster. And I couldn't even move, bro. And all I could think of was like, I can't believe how much I fucked this all up. I can't believe that I trusted the mushrooms because I listened to what they said to me, and that this is happening now. And then right when I was just in such a place of like disappointment and like doubting myself and, why did I do this? And this little voice came through and it was like, get the incense, light the incense. And I literally had to crawl across the floor because I couldn't walk. And I just barely found a lighter, lit the incense, but it was enough to ground me again. It brought me back in my body and I could actually walk. I was like, holy shit. It was like I found the magic potion to like cure this like hell I was in. And I got up, man, and I went into this place of knowing of like, I'm here to be in service. I'm not here to like have that kind of experience. I'm here to help facilitate this. Went upstairs, found the guy that was in his room under the covers. And I'm in this like very interesting place of just knowing what to do. My mind is not there. I'm just like, yep, I know how to do this. And, I asked how he's doing. He's like, not good. This isn't good. And I was like, give me your hand. We locked hands, man. And it was like an avatar thing. We became one and we started cycling through so many intense emotions of like crazy tears, crazy fits of laughter, all the different things in between. And it was like electricity going back between us. And then at the end of it, we stopped and we looked at each other and we were like, dude, we've done this so many times before. We are from other planets. We've been doing this kind of thing in many other places at different times. And I knew he was a healer that wasn't allowing himself to do that. And I was like, hey, your powers are needed downstairs with the other guys. Like, that's why you're here. So we went downstairs and those two guys are going through it. And one of the men, he's like this big, like 6'6", like Viking. He's kind of like you, except he's even a little bit bigger and like burlier. And he's like he's like an Irish Viking. And he was having a kid in 2 weeks. And I'm not bullshitting. This is exactly what happened. I could feel the presence of his son, like almost like come into me or start directing. And I had this energy come through my hands and it was like a magnet just drawn right to his heart. He's lying on the couch. Like, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, just trust it. And I start like throwing lightning bolts into his heart and he's like spasming on the couch. And then I'm like, I start to pull stuff out of his chest and I can just feel it. It feels like this magicians pulling a long napkin out of their hat.
Yeah.
Like it just kept coming out and I could feel it. It was like all this trauma and it was all this shit from not just this lifetime, but from other ones. And the son was like talking to me, like, get all of this out. Like, I don't want to absorb any of this. And so it was like, it was such a crazy, and he's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I know, but just let it happen. And then the other guy's doing energy work on the young dude who, he ran out of the house at one point because he was so freaked out at what was going on. And everyone's like, we got to go find him. Like it's, below freezing out there. And I'm in that knowingness place. I'm like, he'll be back in like 2 minutes. Trust me. Sure enough, 2 minutes comes by, the door swings open. And he like calls his dad and I like talk to his dad on the phone. I know exactly what to say to his dad. It was just this whole thing, man. And the next morning we all got up and we were just like, what the fuck happened last night?
Like, well, the mushrooms worked.
Uh-huh. And then at the end of that, I was like, I want to do that again. And so I did it with another group and then like it just kept going. And then eventually that led to doing men's retreats in the Joshua Tree. And that was like this whole thing spiraled out of just seeing where it went, trusting it and following the intuition on that. So it was like, but it was a lot of shit, as you know, man, of like imposter syndrome. Who am I to do this? Who am I to tell anyone how to live or what to be like? It's a big initiation for sure.
Dude, I went through a lot of that too, man. And, it's funny because I've always been drawn, like even way before I was into coaching or had a business or anything, I was always the one people would go to on psychedelics to be like, I need some help. And I might not have known how to do energy work back then, but I always knew how to make them laugh and how to like distract them well enough to get them kind of past the point that they were like focused on.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm always passing out the supplements and I got like all the things in me. It's the role I've always enjoyed kind of playing in my rave family and whatnot. And when I got into this type of work, I obviously had been in the world of cannabis forever. And yet I was, when I joined and lifted, I was like, maybe I'll be a mindset coach, And so I hadn't yet tapped into, okay, I'm going to do conscious cannabis. I didn't even know what that was, like there was no one out there talking about that whatsoever. And so I remember the first retreat I went to, which was in August of 2020. It was the one that I went to like 2 weeks after the first lake house party with Mark. My buddy, Chris Marhefka, was hosting it. Shout out to Chris. Awesome guy. And that's where I also, had I met him? Yeah, I met him a couple weeks before, but that's where I became really close with Danny Rios. And Danny's like one of my homies. He's also a 5-1 projector in human design. And him and I just really connected. He's the one that invited me to Mexico. And I remember one of the nights, probably one of the first nights, I was up with him and I started bringing my cannabis to these events, right? I was like, these guys I all look up to. What could I bring that they don't already have? Well, I'll bring my cannabis, and they can just smoke for free. That's honestly what I thought I was doing. But what was funny was, and I tell this story with Paul too, there was levels to this, but
yeah,
like when I first brought that flower to Mark's house, I remember Leo Savage and some other people were like, dude, this is like really good. And I was like, oh, thanks, like whatever. I knew it was good. Like it's good weed, but they were like, no, like there's something unique here. And I was like, all right. And then I brought it to Colorado and, people were talking about like, wow, I've never had anything like this. Oh my God, what are you doing? And so people kept asking me questions and I'm still not really noticing it. I'm like, oh, this is what I do, Korean natural farming, yada, yada. Anyway, teach me about sales funnels and marketing and mindset and like all this stuff you guys know about, right? So one of the first nights, Danny Rios and I ended up staying up till like 2 a.m. And we're just shooting the shit on the couch. He's teaching me a lot of stuff from Strong Coach, which was like the business program out of the 3. It was like Training Camp for the Soul and Lifted and Strong Coach that like all these people were a part of, pretty much all of them. And so we're talking about this stuff and he's like, buddy, can I ask you something? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you're a medicine man. Why aren't you doing this? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, and he's from Oaxaca and he's like, what is it? Because you're a white guy or something? Like, fuck whoever says anything about it. And I was like, I had never even thought about it that way, but there was maybe a part of me that was a little like nervous to be the next white shaman, and because Burning Man's already got enough of those. So basically he's one of the ones that first started challenging me and being like, dude, fuck what anyone says. Like, you are this, so who fucking cares what color your skin is or whatever? Like, tell them to go pound fucking sand, dude, if they say anything. So he started really like ushering me into it. And then I started to be like, okay, I'm starting to realize from all these people, my cannabis is very unique. And I'm starting to have this like a little bit of awareness. But I remember, the story goes, like I remember, finally when I got into cannabis work deeper, and then also, many of the retreats we did early on had other psychedelics at them. And I remember very similar to you, being like, am I really going to like do this? Because I had always kind of done it, but it had never been that before. Like I would always do it with all my friends and I'd end up the one kind of coaching all of them, but I wasn't the coach. I didn't have the title. So now that I have the title, it's like kind of weird and I'm kind of overthinking it.
Yeah.
And I remember like at the end of the day, as long like it's actually the less you do, the better, like all someone really needs you for is just to be there with them if they're going through something hard, and if you're just there and you'll naturally feel when it's your time to arrive there and hang out with them for a little while, you'll know whether or not they want to hear anything or whether they just want your space there. And you'll also know when it's time for you to get up and keep doing your rounds, and when they've kind of worked their way through. Totally. And, again, so aside from like the, hey, just want to make sure no one's got schizophrenia, things like that, as long as you have the right people and you're operating from a place of goodness from your heart, everything's going to go okay. But, what I find is that those of us that found out that that's true through psychedelics are usually much more confident and kind of like just being like, well, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to move forward now. That's how I operate in everything now. Like there's so many things that like, a month ago I hosted a summit. I had never hosted a summit. They're like, you want to MC it? I'm like, sure. Had no idea what I was going to do until literally I hopped on and the words just came out of my mouth. And I feel like that's such a powerful way to live, dude. It's such a easier and simpler way to live to just be like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just trust myself and I'll figure it out. And if I foobar it, then I'll laugh about it and I'll make people laugh. I know I'm good at that. And just like, it doesn't really matter that much. Like I'm always going to figure it out. And, I'm grateful for that time. But yeah, when you were saying that, it brought that up because I've had a very similar journey with medicine work for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole thing around that, but really what neutralized that kind of like, especially with the white guy image thing and like, oh shit, I don't want to like call myself that. I don't want to put myself out there as that. And Paul Chek's talked about this. It's like we're just filled with all of these archetypes that activate at different points within us. And then for whatever reason, the shamanic archetype activates within me at certain times when it comes to healing and when the intention's there and when I hold a ceremony space. Like, all right, cool. Like you don't have to deny that. That's just within you. And that's just like part of who you are and why you're here. And embracing that is such a beautiful thing. And to your point of just being in that place of kind of letting go and in that release of like, hey, I'll figure this out. I'll what the universe is bringing me, what God's bringing me, like I will accept that. And then I'll learn as I go. And that's why one of the things I love more than anything is improv. Like improv is one of my absolute favorite activities in the world. And it's a lifestyle because you have to get rid of all the bullshit that's like, am I doing it right? Am I making a mistake? Like, am I saying it wrong? Am I being funny? And it's like, you can't mess it up. You're just creating in the moment. And I've seen it, man. It's like a muscle that when you start training it, your brain goes into that free association place. It figures it out and it's sharp, but that side is dull for so many people because it's not strengthened and we got conditioned to be so on the left side of our logical reasoning, calculating, mathematical brain, that the right side has just been like, it's totally atrophied. But when that starts to get strengthened and you start to like exercise that, it works for everything. It puts things together. Like conversations are never dull. You know what to say. You get thrown into those situations like you're talking about, and your brain just knows how to take care of it. Like you know what to do. The energy, you're a clear conduit, and it just comes through, and all of life turns into an improv scene. Like now, dude, I can't go into a coffee shop and do a normal interaction anymore. I'm causing a scene every time. Why? Because it's fun. It's not. I want to take the baristas and the cashiers out of like a robotic transactional thing, and it's fun for all of us. And I go in, and sometimes I'll put up the finger guns, and I'm like, give me all the muffins. Nobody gets hurt. No sudden movements. Like, and they all put their hands up, and we go into a whole scene, and it's like, why would I not? That life is so much more fun from that place and enjoyable and creative. And it's like, we want to create, we want to be in the newness of experience, like out of the dull, like day-to-day surface level bullshit. And I feel like something like improv is, it's strengthening that muscle to like help us to see like, that's why we're here. You know,
Totally.
There's so much
100%.
Good stuff with that.
Dude, and you know what's great about that too is I have a concept that I call senior level consciousness. And what I think about this is almost like if you're aware that like as within, so without, for instance, right? If you're aware that everything's an inside job and some guy flips you off in the car and then you get mad at him, well, it's your fault now because you knew better. He didn't know any better. Like he didn't know about that, but you do. All right. So you got to be the one to be the bigger person. All right. That's how the world is meant to work, in my opinion. Right.
Yeah.
So what's great about what you just said is that we all want fun. Like everyone wants fun. Like if I had to ask 100 people, would you rather go to a beach with people you loved and have a blast, whatever that party type, atmosphere looks like for you, or would you rather do a spreadsheet? I would beg to argue that about at least 95 of those people would in a heartbeat rather be on a beach, but they're not. Right. So the question becomes why? Well, they've got themselves programmed to believe that they have to do this job they don't like because they're going to need money sometime in the future and all the things that we both are aware of as well. Right. Yeah. That we had to break through and like kind of smash these things. So what's great about what you're saying is that if you walk into an establishment, you're aware that everyone in there wants to have more fun. Yeah. They aren't aware of that usually. They might have thought it before. Of course, it's not a weird thought to have. Like, I mean, it's not an uncommon thought to have, but they don't know they can make it like that, right? But you do. So you, having the senior level consciousness, have the opportunity to remind them. The same way that let's say your car breaks down and one of them knows more about you, more than you about fixing a car, well, they're going to be the one to fix your car, right? Yeah. So this is like how life is meant to work in unison. We're all meant to own our gifts and we're meant to share them with the world. And mine, like we were talking about before we hit record, is the same as yours, dude. It's like, I like to be a big goofball. I like to have a lot of fun. And to me, it's not a party unless we're all doubling over in laughter. Like to a point where like, I mean, dude, there's been times where we've been in a big group taking LSD and we're hitting each other so hard with jokes that like people are like unable to breathe. They're like, stop, I'm going to die. And then you hit them with another and they're like, low blow, bro. And like, it hurts. Like your abs feel like they got to work out the next day. I love that shit. I am obsessed with it. Like
no better medicine than that on the planet. I believe.
No better medicine. And you know why I think they say laughter is the best medicine? Because you can only laugh when you realize a paradox. That's what a laughter really is, in my opinion. It's paradox. And the whole nature of the universe is paradoxical. Like, wait a minute. We think we're here, but it's actually a dream. And wait a minute. We think we die, but we actually are never been born, so we can never die. And wait a minute. We're all scared about things happening to us, but nothing real can ever be threatened. Like, that is comically hilarious, you know? And so for me, laughter is almost like this sign that you're tapping into what's real, because what is real is just love and comedy, in my opinion. Like that to me, the most real and whole I've ever felt is when I'm feeling love and when I'm laughing. Hopefully at the same time too, you know?
Yeah. So. I mean, it's the laughing Buddha. It's like, you've probably had this experience quite a few times with any psychedelic stuff, but a lot of times you go from like deep, weeping or crying, and then you come out of the other side in this like hysterical laughter. because
Mm-hmm.
you see the absurdity, you see the paradox like you're talking about. And it's like, oh, that's always on the other side, the cosmic joke. It's
Mm-hmm.
that is always the place that you get to. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so if it always feels so good to reach that place where you're like, wow, I was taking things way too seriously because I was stuck in the human character. And I channeled a song on that, and it's called "I Take Things to or Taking Life Too Seriously." And one of the lines is like, "You grew up too fast, and now you got a tight ass, living all stressed out." And it's like, but you're an infinite soul, so loosen up that butthole and let go of all doubt. And
Dude.
that line, I was like, that's a bar right there, because it's so
Oh.
true. It's like our sphincters are so tight, and we're like, this is no, you have to be serious, and you got to do it like this, and you got to think, you got to like, hold it all together. And it's like the Hayoko comes by, or the coyote, and just like nips you on the ass, and it zaps you out of it, and you're like, oh shit, it's not serious. Or like a kid runs by and like squirts you with a squirt gun, and you're
You're
like,
it.
oh
And runs
shit.
away. I
You're like,
know.
oh, I was just so like, dude. Another a South Shore thing that made me laugh, like those fits of laughter. This one of the best laughs I've ever had in my life, and it was kind of a dick move, but in the South Shore, it's boring, and it's the summertime, it's hot. We used to go around, dude. We'd get super baked, and we would be in my Buick with like me, my two best friends, my little brother, and we'd have these big ass super soakers. And we would just find kids that were walking on the street, and we'd be like, "Hey, man, do you know how to get to Dunkin's?"
Oh my
And
God.
we would just, and then we'd put the bazooka out the window and just soak the people. Like, and sometimes they would get so mad, and then other times they would just sit there and take it. And I laughed so hard. Like I'm like, I'm gonna crash my car. Like I can't drive like this. And guess what, man? Guess how that always ended when we would do that kind of a thing? It always ended with all of us idiots in the car stopping, and then someone would squirt another person, and then we're having a full-blown squirt gun fight in the car. Everything gets soaked. We're all soaked, and it all comes back full circle.
Dude, now I know we're tapped into the same energy, bro, because my thing is Nerf guns. I was just talking about this with Mark. So for everyone listening, you already heard this, but Mark is always talking about becoming unpuckered. All right. So stop puckering your butthole, right? When people
Yep.
hold their stories too tight and they're too restrictive in their stories and they're too close minded, it's all coming from control and fear, and it tightens you. It makes you tense. And so Mark had bought a website called unpuckered.com like 4 years ago. And then his credit card lapsed and some asshole bought it, right? And so the guy was trying to sell it back to him for like $1,500. And he checked the other day and it became live again for like $10. He bought it. And then he told my buddy Dave Ray, who you will love Dave Ray. He's one of the funniest people ever. And literally by the next morning, Dave had made him an unpuckered theme song because Dave's made the Lifted theme song. He makes all these hilarious things. And it's very similar to the lyrics you were just saying, like straight up.
Mhm.
So tell me that isn't synchronicity, bro.
Oh,
That we grew
dude.
up doing the same things. So funny. And
What a
thinking about things in
website,
the same way.
unpucker.com. Careful that you make sure you do the .com and not .something else. That could get weird.
Yeah, exactly. You do not want to, risk that one. That's going to come
Yeah.
at a high price.
.ca could be pretty dark.
Holy shit, dude. That is so fucking funny. Sean, this has been amazing, dude. I can't believe we all blew through an hour. It's literally felt like I'm just like hanging out, having the fucking best time, man. And that's what I love about, the listeners in the show know, I've been taking a little bit of time back, and only releasing an episode every 2 weeks because I'm going through a lot of internal shifts right now, really fun ones, where I'm letting more of this side of me out. I'm letting more of like, yes, guys, I can be a savage and work 16-hour days and all that bullshit, but that didn't really get me to be that happy. And, like I'm now coming out of that phase of like thinking that the stories that come out, years after are like, oh man, like I really didn't have that much self-confidence. So I didn't really see myself for a long time. And the last 6 years of meeting all of these people, you, Chris, all these people we, both know and hanging out so much has really validated and shown me a lot of the aspects of myself and how people receive me. And one of the things I love most about myself is my ability to laugh. I really think that's like one of the best things I have going for me because, again, in the world right now, it's so heavy if you let it be, but it's also so light if you let it be. And so getting to podcast with people like you who are also so light, can go so deep, but have learned to keep it light, to keep it fun, and, are able to be of service in such a profound way to show people and remind them like, hey, spoiler alert, this is just a dream. All right. Don't take it too seriously. Be committed, be passionate, but don't be serious. All right. No one gets out alive anyway. But spoiler alert, we're actually never been born, so we never die. So.
Yes.
So
people love that one.
Yeah, they do. Paradox, right? The nature of the universe is paradoxical. So where can I send people to connect with you? What do you have coming up? If you'd like to share anything about the men's work you're doing, any upcoming retreats. I don't know if you guys have any upcoming retreats coming up, but where can people find you? Where can I send them to connect with the awesomeness that is Sean? Where can I send them to get amazing, amazing work? And even for you women listening, don't think this doesn't apply to you, okay? Maybe you know men in your life that really could benefit from this type of work, right? From this deep work, but also by keeping it light and remembering to have fun. So where can I send people, my man, to tap into your magic?
Yeah, man. Well, and I just real quick want to acknowledge and appreciate you for having me on. It's been super fun. It's like you were one of those guys right away when I met you. It was like, boom, instant resonance. And I share so many of the things that you value about yourself. And I experience that in you of like, man, I tell people, I'm like, he's such a character. Like you make me want to be more of my character when I'm around you. And it's awesome.
Likewise for me, dude.
It's infectious,
Yeah.
But so it's just so cool. Full circle. We get to do this as South Shore guys,
I know
this later on in the path. And well, you said the thing with women, it's like, it's funny because a lot of my, I'm doing more like men's work in retreat spaces, but my one-on-one space is definitely like half men, half women. So I enjoy working with women on, transformational stuff too. But I would say, followyourpath.live is, that's my website. And then Instagram's Sean, SEAN_Padrick, which is like PADRAIC. So I post a lot of stuff there, and we don't have any retreats coming up yet. I think we're going to probably be in the process of figuring that out soon, but I post all updates to Instagram and also YouTube as well. Follow your path on YouTube. And, I do have, a group program that is coming up in about 3 weeks, and that is centered around helping people to come out of survival and get into creator mode. Because I had just such a deep, intimate journey with survivalism and how that killed this side that I'm expressing now. Like this was so stifled and shut down for so long because of survivalism and stuff, especially living out of the car, not believing in myself, all that kind of thing. So it's helping people to come out of that place and actually step into service, be the creators of their experience, have more fun, be more of who they are. And that's just me giving back from all the shit that I went through to come out of the other side on that. So that one I'm really excited about. And yeah, man, it's been freaking awesome to come on here and jam with you like this.
Likewise, dude. Next time we got to do it live somewhere in the South Shore.
Dude, yes. My first podcast I ever did, that was another thing too. It's my podcast I had for 5 years was Follow Your Path podcast. Dope. First one I ever did was in the kitchen in Hanson with my brother, who you also got to meet at some point. So it would be an incredible, again, full circle thing to come back in that area and do a live podcast with you, man. And then maybe we can set up a big town brawl after that, just for old time's sake.
Dude. And get super soakers, all right?
Get your paintball guns, hide a spot in the woods.
Throwback. Dude, the plan will be, we'll get a Breathe with Cannabis event out here. And then me, you, Chris, whoever else comes back after, we can set up a whole pause studio here. I'll invite my producer, Shlomo, who's fucking legend. Love that kid. And he'll set everything up for us. And we'll have maybe a quad pod, maybe a quint pod. I don't know. Quad pod has the coolest ring to it. All right. Because it
sounds very nice.
Podcast, but it is hilarious, dude. I've done a couple quad pods and they're so fun. But yeah, we'll do a bunch of content, and here's to manifesting that we're going to do it at the Church of Modern Renaissance, because that place is fucking sick. Yeah, it's so dope. And so seriously, man, I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm sure our paths will cross before too long in the 3D again. Whether it's in Mexico or Austin or who knows where, dude. But I'm sure we'll be seeing each other before our next outing at the South Shore. So I'm really excited, man. And thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks for riffing with me. You know, it's so cool being able to go back to childhood and someone gets it, you know, because like, you know, the South Shore is very unique. Like I am very grateful that I was raised here. You know, like I'm not, obviously I didn't grow up somewhere like California or Austin or Colorado or Montana or wherever. So I don't know what it was like, but I can tell you that when I hear about others' childhood upbringings, it does not sound a quarter as fucking crazy and fun as anyone I know that grew up in the South Shore. So I'm very grateful.
I know. And when you think about it too, it's like that area, man, like so much shit started in Boston, like so much of the American culture and like the Pilgrims going there, like the natives, the things that happened there, like there was so much, that was such a launching point for a lot of things, that particular area. And to grow up there was kind of wild when you think about it. It's like, holy shit, that was a pretty big spot.
You know what's crazy to think about, and I'll close with this, is that some people travel across the country to go to Plymouth fucking Rock, dude, which is such a rip-off.
And you're so
dude.
let down when you do. It's the biggest letdown ever.
It's so, dude, I was like 8 the first time I went, maybe even younger, and even I knew, like, this is a rip-off, guys. Who knows that that's the fucking rock? And it's just a fucking rock. Like,
it is the most lackluster rock you'll ever see in your life. It's the same reaction. Everyone will see it for the first time, and you're like, that's the rock.
So
okay.
That's it?
And
that's
it's like they just like threw a dart at a rock and we're like, that's the one. We're gonna say that's the Plymouth Rock. Like that's where they landed. Cool.
They were like, all right, it's in Plymouth. Okay, check. And it is a rock. So Plymouth Rock, good enough for you guys? All right, good enough for me. No one will know. It's like, dude, it's so lackluster, bro. You know, my buddy says that his favorite thing to do is sit on the bench across the street, smoke joints, and watch people like run up to it like, oh my God, it's Plymouth Rock. And then be like, what? And he's like, I just laugh.
That's the sound effect everyone gets.
Oh my God, bro. Dude, it'd be even better if you sat there and as they looked at it, you played that, you know, so that it synced up with their reaction. Holy shit, dude. That's
someone needs to do that. I might, next time I'm home, I might just go up there for a day and do that for people and be the Heyoka like that.
Well, we can't, you know, blast people with super soakers. You could only get away with that when you were like 16, 18. So now
I can't do that anymore.
We got to change our tune. So now that's what we do, you know?
All right. Dial it back a little bit.
Womp sound, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's innocent enough. I can't get arrested for that.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And, you know, if the cop comes out of the car, then we'll just play it the second he comes out of the car.
Yep, or like the Bad Boys theme or something like that.
Oh my God, dude. So funny, bro. So funny. Well, dude, I fucking love you, bro. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for laughing with us. Remember today to laugh more, okay? If you have someone in your life that needs to laugh more, get them to laugh more. Maybe show them this episode if you think it'll make them laugh. But at the end of the day, guys, it's not that serious, okay? None of us get out alive, but spoiler alert, we've actually never been born, so we'll never die, like I said before. So it's one big paradox, okay? Remember to have fun, guys. It's not that deep. So sending you guys all the love. If you love the show and you can help us get more listeners just like you that are friggin' rad and awesome, then go review the show. Go let us know what you think. And until next time, everybody, may the source be with you to infinity and beyond. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Peace.
Big love. Peace.